yourselves wherever you want. Good over here, Aaron. This is like your corner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like where you are, isn't it? Each one.
Even in boxing as well.
Oh, is it? Mr. Holm, how are you?
I'm all right.
Oh, good. Cheers, mate. Right. Let's dive right in. We'll jump right in, everyone. So, week 3 today. First bit is mindset, but I think it's more thought patterns rather than mindset. I think mindset is a bit more superficial. This is a little bit deeper, I would say. And then we're going to go into fiber. But to begin with, week 3, at this point, there should be some struggles in the process. It should feel harder. Mentally, your head's probably saying you can't do it and what's the point and that sort of thing. Hence why this has fallen on week 3 when we're into the process. So with that, we're going to start with a reflection. And I have worksheets. Yay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank God. There we go.
Oh.
No, it's 2. No, it's 2. So we'll spend 5, maybe 10 minutes going through these questions. But this is also an opportunity, like, take these with you, take them home. You can sit and ponder on some of the questions if you need some more time. You certainly can. I'll just pass the paper out. The 2 there? Yeah, that's right. Everyone got one? If you got to just spend a few moments there. Yeah, I got pens here. So just to say, these questions aren't about fixing anything. They're just about acknowledging what this part of the process feels like. Okay. Got 1 more minute there and then. What was Georgina last night? Yeah. And that's where she was, where we all were. We'll move on then, guys. So, firstly, since last week, and obviously we've spoken to you a couple of times this week, Luke, sleep's been a big change. Oh, love it. Music to my ears, that. Yeah, I think the thing that was most cool in the numbers that you sent me is that time in bed is broadly the same, but time asleep is much higher. You're getting much more sleep for the same amount of work, effectively. Much more efficient. Yeah. Anyone else made changes to sleep this week and feeling the benefit?
Big changes, not quite got the benefit stage yet, but we've been going to bed. We're trying to stick to going to bed at 11, 7, so every day.
Perfect. It can take a bit of time. If you're really out of sync, it can take a bit of time for them rhythms to sync up. It can take like 1 or 2 weeks.
The first few days, like, I'm going to bed at 11, but I wouldn't actually.
Yeah, exactly.
The last few days, I have actually fallen asleep on time.
Nice.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, no, it will. It'll start to get to the point where, 10 out of 10, start feeling that feeling of, oh, I'm ready for bed now. As soon as you get it to pillow, bang, out. And then, like with Lou there, you get more time asleep for the same amount of time in bed. Amazing. Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're all working. That's a perfect example of one of the things I said last week, that sleep isn't something you force, it's something you allow. And it's creating the conditions for sleep, and that's what you've done. Change them routines, and it creates the conditions for sleep. Cool. So, these questions are a chance for you to look at yourself and the process. So, if we read between the lines in these questions, we can find some answers. For example, when did you feel most drained? Chances are that is a trigger that is going to cause a potential collapse or sabotage of the process. It could be, like we said in the past, that your boss at work, every time you speak to them, you're drained. It could be that you're putting extra sessions into your week and the day after you're real tired. And because of that, then that day after is a real challenge. There's things like that. If we pay attention to where you're feeling most drained, can we minimize that scenario that causes that drain to happen? When did something small feel like something bigger? Chances are, any scenario like that felt bigger, it's a calorie deficit. It wasn't the scenario itself. You're attaching meaning to it because your brain's trying to force you out of this deficit. So if we can label these things, we can get some power over them. But first of all, we need to be aware of these things so that we can do that. Again, same with that one. Where has motion shown up more than expected? That's calorie deficit. Where you felt more tense, same thing. How has sleep changed? Hopefully in here, for most people, it's got better. However, again, the calorie deficit will counteract a lot of the things. Hence why we want to try and manage the rhythms that we can to not damage sleep. Have you felt irritable, impatient? Again, calorie deficit. What now feels harder than week 1? Where did you attach meaning to these feelings? This is where I feel tired, therefore I can't do this. Or that was a struggle, therefore I'm not capable. If you attach a meaning to the feeling and give it a label, it then creates a belief for you. So we've got to be so self-aware of what's going on in the brain to try and separate between emotions and thoughts and truth and logic. the mechanisms delivered by the brain to keep you alive, but doesn't always mean that it's in the benefit of what you're trying to achieve logically. Did you interpret flatness as this isn't working, attaching meaning to the emotion? What story has your brain been telling? For example, feel tired, so I can't do this. Did you push harder than planned? This is what we're going to speak about today. Don't is the answer. But I'll explain the kind of caveats around that. Then we start to get into the more positive side of it. And we've got a cool little challenge that I'm going to do with you all today that will highlight this. If we don't find these reasons why it's working, you deliberately will not see them. Your brain will not find them. So where did you stay consistent despite emotions? If you don't ask yourself that question, you might feel like this week's been a complete failure. However, you might then look at it and go, do you know what? I felt tired every night this week. Well, I went to bed on time every night. You've done that despite your emotions. So that's a huge win. You're living like the person that future you wants to be, and you're doing that today. So we've got to find those reasons. What did you do well? What evidence do you have that this is working? Again, if we don't look for that evidence, we won't find it. Your brain will convince you that it doesn't exist. Cool. And then finishing well, we'll come to that today. One point, I was just kind of looking at people's answers as you was writing them. One of the ones that, like, there's a couple of people who wrote this kind of thing that was the base of what you do being lower because you don't have mental energy and kind of waiting for your mental energy to come back before you can then attack like calorie deficit, exercise, etc. The point of it is that you've got to control the mental energy. That's the first thing that we control because the mental energy allows everything else to happen. So that's why, for example, the big focus of this is let's get enough sleep, let's get enough fiber, let's get enough hydration, let's control the nervous system deliberately. In my experience, the two things that will control your mental energy is the sleep and then controlling the nervous system. So the breath work, the sauna, the steam, walking without headphones and so on. That's the stuff that will give you the mental energy. So instead of waiting for the mental energy to come back, give yourself the inputs that give you the mental energy. And we can kind of shortcut, we can pull your future towards you. Makes sense. And again, like through the reflection, if we know that we've done the reflection piece that we've just done here, we now know that we struggle when we haven't got the mental energy. Well, then next week, what can we do? What inputs can we give that give us more mental energy? So we're not waiting for that to come back in order to attack the process.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
That's my stumbling block.
this next bit, let's see if that answers it. That's a lot of what we're going through. There's a lot of it which is, I'll say this in a thread of a lot of these accelerators, which is you've got to live intentionally. And that is living like the person that future you wants to be, regardless of what's going on today. So to some extent, there is a list of things that you should tick each week in order to achieve the results that you want. And those things need to be ticked regardless of emotion, thought, logic. And that's where we said, I think it was last week, about follow the plan, not the mood. Now, for me, the way that I try to approach it is let's try and eliminate the things that the brain makes you think like that. For example, the sleep, the water, and so on. That's why we do that. But then that's the physiological side. The other side then is the psychological side. So how can we try to change the way that we think about it, which is like the purpose of today. So there's a couple sides to it. The firstly is, can we control the physiology to minimize the way the brain will attack you? Then can we maybe think about some of the psychology, try and reframe the way that we're thinking about it? And then thirdly, sometimes it's just, you got to do it. You just got to tick that box regardless of what your brain's telling you. Something that helped me, right? This a quote from Russell Brand of all people, but he was talking about when, I know as a human, like, but he went for rehab and went back to sobriety, and he was talking about that, and he said it was something one of his like rehab counselors said to him that, like, he said something along the lines of the counselor said to him, "None of us can help you. We can't do it. We can't fix you. The tools that exist to fix you are already inside you today because, of course, they are. Where else would they be? So all of the tools to create the change that you want already exist inside you because where else would they be?"
Whenever my brain is just go back to bed, there's another part of my brain that's able to take it away. That helps getting out of bed.
No, it's good but the chip paradox.
Naming it, it's worth reading.
Yeah. So, to finish that, what would change if you stopped interpreting tiredness as failure? And this is more of a catch-all thing of what would change if you stopped giving emotions, attaching logic to them, attaching truth to them. So, I feel tired, therefore I shouldn't do it. What would change if you stopped interpreting tiredness as failure? So, how your brain is trying to stop this from working. Stress and fat loss. So your brain wants you safe. We talked about this bit last week. When it senses danger, it creates a stress response. Your body doesn't know whether that danger is someone's running at you with a knife, I'm in a calorie deficit, I didn't get enough sleep. A car's coming towards me and I've had to swerve out of the way. Your brain can't differentiate between different types of danger. It just knows danger. So the same stress response triggers for every single thing of stress that it senses. Lifestyle impacts this. If we are in a calorie deficit, we reduce our capacity for stress tolerance, and that stress tolerance itself reducing makes it even harder to be in a calorie deficit. So the sort of act of being in a calorie deficit makes it harder for you to be in a calorie deficit. So we've got to try and overcome that. So we spoke about this already, but the way to overcome that is to protect sleep, to keep your routines boring, to lower your expectations, and to keep to the plan and keep calories steady. So much of the lower expectations bit, so much of people going off track and giving up is a misalignment between what they've achieved and their expectation. I can think of a couple of people where they've done like the 4 weeks or they've done 6 weeks and they've got on the InBody and they've stopped because they've only lost 10 pounds. That's an insane amount of fat loss in 4 to 6 weeks. And they've not carried on with us because they only lost 10 pounds. There's one in particular I can think of who just didn't carry on because she didn't get 4 more pounds of fat loss than she expected. 10 pounds was an insane rate of fat loss in that time period. Had she just carried on for probably 1 more week, she probably would have hit it at the rate she was going. But instead, she just stopped and then stopped the whole process. Expectations is a powerful bit. There's a book called Mind the Gap, and it's about the difference between expectations. It's more of like a customer service book, but the same rule applies. A lot of businesses will be rated lowly if the expectation of the service doesn't meet what actually you get. But I think the same is true for fat loss. Like a lot of it will be sabotaged if your expectation of what you can achieve doesn't match the reality of it. And that's where when we're goal setting, one of the first things we need to do is make sure that someone isn't setting a goal that is physiologically impossible because they are just setting themselves up to fail. It's a delicate trade-off because the goal needs to be big enough and hard enough that it motivates you, but it can't be that big that it's not possible to hit. So, in my opinion, you can set that big, hairy goal to get started. Once you're in the process, lowering your expectation of what you can achieve is probably beneficial because it will keep you in the game long enough to keep fighting. Cool. So, there's some mindset reframes we're going to go through to try and stop the feelings taking over the brain. Appreciate that everything that we've spoken about so far is normal. So, feeling tired, struggling with stress, feeling flat, all of that is a normal part of the process. It's not a signal of failure and it's not a reason to stop the process. It is how you should feel because physiologically that is what is going to happen. Most people don't quit fat loss because it didn't work. They quit because it didn't feel like they thought it would. That can be expectation. It can be feelings. With that, so I'm going to take you on a journey of different mind frames and how to instill the right thought patterns. This is the expectation gap. When people go into fat loss, they expect it to feel energizing, motivating, empowering, uplifting. You start it off, you're full of dopamine, you're full of serotonin, you're like, I'm going to change my life. But then you start the fat loss, and the reality of the process is, it's quieter than you think it's going to be. You feel flatter, it's mentally heavier, and it's less rewarding. It takes a lot longer than you probably anticipate that it should as well. Fat loss feels worse before it feels better. The first thing is that expectation gap is something that we need to be so aware of. If you went into it thinking or actually feeling energized, motivated, empowered, and uplifted, and that quickly disappeared, good. That means you're in a calorie deficit and you're doing the right thing. The next thing is you need to accept the reality that it's going to feel flat, you're going to be mentally heavier, and it's not very rewarding until you get a bit further down the line. The rewarding bit is interesting because that's where like body dysmorphia can come into it. And that's where you'll get people who'll say to you, oh, you're looking great. I can see you've lost weight, but you can't see it yourself. You see yourself all the time. You get people where they've lost quite a significant amount of weight, but in their head, they look in the mirror and they look no different to themselves. That's body dysmorphia. So the rewarding bit is there's more that gets involved with where the reward arrives. And it depends then on where you're looking for the reward. What are you attaching your success to? If your success was people telling you you're looking good, it'll probably come a lot quicker than you actually would have seen it otherwise, for example. So the next one, following the plan, not your mood. Feelings are influenced by sleep, stress, calories, hormones, work, life, relationships. None of those things are good for fat loss. So a lack of sleep, too much stress, not enough calories, hormones, work, life, like all of those things impact fat loss because they impact your mood. And that mood can then change the way that you feel about the process. So for example, just flirt with your partner. Probably last thing you want to do then is open your Tupperware with broccoli and chicken in it. Domino's has just text me. Like, it seems very tempting at that point, doesn't it? There's those chips in the freezer, yeah, exactly. So This is where there's obviously, again, we've spoke about this a lot in every week. There's the science and then there's the reality of life. And this process is more art than science. So there's times in your life where you 100% need to cut yourself some slack, have the dominoes, grieve the relationship, but drink Baileys, go for a tub of ice cream. You bear in mind that that will impact the process. In that scenario, probably the first thing you need to do is protect yourself, protect your emotions, go through whatever that challenging scenario is. However, at some point, you need to come back into the plan if them goals mean enough to you. When I say that, there's no judgment from me. It's up to you what you want to achieve, and it's up to you where that sort of starting of the plan continues. What I would say there is that if your mood is always the challenge, then you need to probably look at that first. For example, therapy, or change something in your life that's really impacting you. Do you work a job that you just absolutely despise and it gets you down that much that you don't sleep very well, you don't eat very well? Is that really worth the pay at that point? Like, you've only got one time on this planet and it's short. So there's a trade-off there of following the plan, not the mood, but pay attention to huge life changes, probably better off not in a calorie deficit. If it's always your mood stopping you, then address the mood, not the plan. So chasing feelings, this is a big one, and everyone does this, and I would like to stop you. So when the novelty wears off, you start the process. This is where we say it feels uplifting, it feels energizing, you feel motivated. Once you start and get into the process, the dopamine drops. First of all, you get a dopamine reward every time you do it. You've set a goal, you've identified behaviors. These behaviors are new. You're doing these new behaviors. Brain rewards you a little piece of dopamine, like a little cookie in your brain that your receptors love to feel. Over time, that behavior now becomes normal. Your brain starts giving you dopamine for it. So now, just eating that calorie deficit is normal. So your brain doesn't say, well done. It is just what you are doing. So at that point, it feels flat. It doesn't feel like it did in the beginning. This is where it's mentally quieter. It's mentally heavier. At this point, what a lot of people will tend to do is change the plan, add intensity in, seek for more motivation, find reassurance, and break the structure of what they've done so far to that point. Does that sound familiar to people? Can people resonate with that? Yeah? When that happens, you're chasing validation through dopamine. Why are you chasing validation? Are you doing this for you? Are you doing this because you were taught that effort equals love as a child? Like, it starts to get much deeper into those sorts of things. Were you only patted on the back as a child for achieving A's, for example, and you were taught that work equals love from caregiver? If you've got a plan that you've identified is working, and within 2 weeks, you've probably seen results as well. If the brain is thinking, this feels mentally flat and I'm not getting dopamine anymore, like, obviously in your head, you're thinking, oh, I'm not getting dopamine, but in your head, if you're thinking this process no longer feels energetic, it feels boring, why do you want to break it if it's working? Are you just seeking excitement, or do you actually want to create change? Because change is boring. Once you get into the meat, the nuts and bolts of change, it gets real boring. You've got to sit with it. So feeling-based lies is the next one. And that is where we're saying about you start attaching truth to emotions and thought patterns. So I don't feel motivated, therefore this process mustn't be working. The thing with it, like we just said, after 2 weeks, you're not going to be motivated for it. You're no longer getting that little dopamine reward. Doesn't mean it's not working. If logically, this is where then we say about following the plan, not the mood. This is where this starts to come into it. If you've highlighted, these are the processes that I need to tick each week. At that point, it doesn't matter how the motivation feels. It doesn't matter the little dopamine reward that you're getting. None of that matters. We just know that we need to tick that box in the week, which might be 2 to 3 gym sessions, maybe 3,000 extra steps, and hit my calorie deficit. We're no longer getting mentally rewarded for that, but we've got to tick that box, regardless of what the mood says. If I'm tired, I should stop. You're going to be tired in a calorie deficit. Now, again, this is where it's art versus science. If you are like absolutely shattered to the point of exhaustion when you're coming home from work, we need to then step back and think like, how's my sleep? Am I getting enough water? Am I getting enough fiber? These are things that can affect energy and drive. But regardless of maximizing those things, you are going to feel tired, especially if you've got like a busy job. You're going to the gym, trying to get extra steps. You will feel tired. If you're feeling tired, that's the signal that you're doing it right. That's not the signal that you should stop. And again, that's where, if it is like overwhelmingly tired, that's where you got to look at the other things. If I was doing this right, it would be easier by now. That's the biggest lie you've ever told yourself. That's just not true. Sorry, I look at you every time, Dan, because like we've had so many of these conversations. Yeah, exactly. You only ever get like you get what you deserve in the sense of genetics, training history, and then behaviors. Genetics is first and foremost the what your mum and dad have passed you down. You're limited by that first of all. I've had some like athletes in particular where their response to training is insane, like how quickly they will adapt and see numbers go up. There was a fighter that we used to train called Ryan, and he used to love the fact that I called him a genetic freak. Like he would literally go from week 1 of his camp to week 8 completely different. The speed that he would change was unreal. And there's only ever like 1 or 2 people I've ever trained that have that kind of genetic characteristic that they can adapt that quickly. But if you don't have them genetics and you're comparing yourself to that person, it's just like the most pointless mind frame ever, because you're fighting 2 different wars effectively. One of you is going to war in a tank and the other one's got, pea shooter. Yeah, bow and arrow. Like, so, and then the last one, if I don't enjoy it, I can't sustain it. I'm not pointing this at anyone, but how entitled is that sentence? Shouldn't have to enjoy everything that you do if you want to achieve something. Sometimes you just got to suck it and go through it if it means that much to future you. So, what them lies mean: tiredness isn't failing, flat isn't stuck, bored isn't wrong, and unmotivated doesn't mean off track. So this is where we need to be self-aware to know, am I feeling tired? Am I feeling flat? Am I feeling unmotivated? And then once we're self-aware of it, intentionally separate feeling from objective reality. It's not even objective reality, it's the percepted reality, which then becomes your objective reality because you've told yourself that's the reality. So, for example, I'm tired, so I'm failing. Or are you just tired because you're doing the process exactly as you should? So can we change the narrative about what that tiredness is? Next one then, change the scorecard. A bit excited to do this bit, right? I'm hopefully going to blow your minds here. Right, I want everyone to look around the room and count everything in the room that is red. I'm going to give you all just 10 seconds. Right, everyone close their eyes. I want the first person to shout out and tell me how many things in the room were blue. Don't know, do you? So the point of that is, you can open your eyes, Lou. None of you could tell me how much stuff in the room was blue. Is that fair to say? If you're not looking for things that are going well, if you're not looking for proof that the process is working, your brain can't find it. In the same way that when you're looking for red, you can't see blue. That makes sense. Yeah. You've got to actively find the reasons why the process is working. You've got to actively find reasons that you're grateful to be here, like gratitude journaling. That's how it works, because your brain starts looking for, say, 3 things per day it's grateful for. It then starts to look for things it's grateful for because you're training it to look for it. If you're programmed to look for negativity, your brain will find that negativity. But we can change the programming by forcing ourselves to look for it. So, are you looking for red when you should be looking for blue? Start looking for the things that give you the proof that the process is working and that you should stay in the game. Right. Yeah.
You're saying about reframing, right?
Yes.
Like you say, struggle getting to sleep.
Mhm.
If I'm in bed and I'm struggling to get to sleep, I just, rather than throwing the fact I'm not sleeping, I just don't have to relax.
Yeah.
So my body's chilling out, I am relaxing. Eventually,
It's true that.
because you're not stressing, you're not thinking about, at least I'm chilling out, I'm relaxing, and my body's getting some rest.
Yeah, it's true. And when you're in bed thinking I need to sleep, sometimes that itself can stop you sleeping. But you're absolutely right. If you reframe it, if you reframe that to I'm in bed relaxing, I'm in bed resting, like sleep will then occur. One of the most useful things that I got told to do when I did therapy was I had like a notes app on my phone, and the therapist gave me this sheet of, I think it was like 9 unhelpful thinking styles. So it's like catastrophization, all or nothing thinking, mental filtering, like focusing on bad, not good, and so on. What she got me to do was, when I was in that scenario where my brain's racing, write down the things that I'm thinking of and then see if I can attach them to an unhelpful thinking style. And when I started to do that, I started to go, well, actually, that's not objective truth. That's catastrophization. I'm only looking at the negative of this scenario on this one. I'm not even looking at the positive, just mentally filtering that one. And then as I started to then label them, it started to get quieter in my brain. I was able to, when it kicked off, go, that one's just all or nothing thinking, that one's just me catastrophizing, and then just like close the loop down. Unhelpful thinking styles. There's a sheet when you search it, if you go like Google Images, there's like an image of like, it shows you them. So any questions on that mental part? Find it useful? Did it answer the question you had at the start, Davina? Yeah. Cool. Right. We'll move into fiber then. How have people found fiber? Hitting the target? In fact, show of hands, have you been hitting 30 grams? Cool. About half the room. For those of you who haven't, are you like miles off it, or are you just short, or a way off? Yes. You do have to. I'll explain why that is in a sec. That is true. That is a good point. That is something worth checking. So why you struggle, and this is what Lou was saying then. The thing with this as well is that what Lou was describing, that it feels like an active challenge to get there. I think that's the reality, is that it will, until you get to the rhythm of how to do it. It becomes quite easy when you're in the rhythm. But starting it will feel like a real active challenge. And the reason why is that modern diets are low volume of food for high calories. And low volume of food, meaning that the food that you eat isn't that satiating. If it's not that satiating, that means it's low in fiber, low in protein. Foods that are high in protein also don't contain fiber. So, yeah, if you guys are aiming for a high protein diet, that doesn't help hit the fiber goal, which is also my next. Oh no, hit both. Then there is ways to do it. So yeah, that wouldn't be something I'd want to choose. Hit this one or that one. I'd want to hit both, because they both give very different health benefits to the body, but none of them like less important than the other. I will say, like with protein, it's a sliding scale of 1.5 up to 2 times body weight. So long as you're meeting 1.5 times body weight, you don't need to be hitting that upper target. But it is the case that the closer to the 2 times body weight you get, the more benefit you get.
So if I'm hitting that protein goal, is it almost wasted protein because I'm not working
No,
out?
not at all. Not at all, no. Yeah. So for easy maths, if your body weight was 100 kilos, it'd be 150 grams of protein. Protein's a separate conversation, so we can have that separately if you want. I've not actually put it in these slides, but I could put it in next week if you wanted. I don't want to get off track with fiber, because we was here for 2 hours last week, weren't we? So no, it's fine. Still ask your questions, by the way, and that doesn't mean don't ask questions. I think the questions are a really useful part, because quite often you'll ask something that someone else maybe doesn't know how to verbalize, but it's an issue that they've also got. Healthy packaging in supermarkets is quite often a scam. There's one the other day, there's a picture of someone had box protein Weetabix. There's no difference in the protein content. How they do it and how they get away with it, I don't know. Like, I'm not up on food labeling, but yeah. When you see like healthy, probably disregard the fact it says healthy. Look at the actual packaging. Is this going to help me meet my fiber goal? Is it going to help me hit protein goal? Does it help me come within my calorie intake? The point then, what you said, Lou, you won't accidentally hit your fiber. It has to be planned. Removing chaos. All those rules of last week of like on a Sunday knowing what you're going to eat over the next week, and the day before knowing what you're going to consume. That includes working out what the fiber intake is going to be. So you don't get to end of your day and go, oh, I've had 5 grams of fiber. And then you've got to eat 25 grams of fiber, which if you're not used to that would be very, very unsettling on your stomach. It won't feel very nice. So this is the game changer in my belief, and it's fiber bombs, which are foods which provide a lot of fiber for very little calories. There's a lot of them, so I haven't put like calorie content on here. Some of them I know in my head, but not all of them. But firstly, berries are good. In particular, raspberries and blackberries. Apple with the skin on, and then pears as well. Raspberries, I think, are something like 9 grams of fiber per 100 grams of raspberries, and that's like 40 calories. So I keep a bag of frozen raspberries in my freezer, and then I'll often, like in a day, again, like usually it's day before that, I'll know that I want it. If I know that I need to get my fiber in somewhere, I've usually got Greek yogurt in as well. Just mix it together, and it's a real high hit of fiber. So, do I give that much advice out that no one does anything with? When someone tells me they've done it, it makes me so happy. So I said this last week, and I'll say it again. My breakfast that I have is I get like most of my fiber in that meal, and it's just filled with fruit. So it's Greek yogurt and 100 grams of raspberries. I've got 50 grams of blueberries. So again, all berries are good, but blackberries and raspberries are real high in fiber. So blueberries I throw in for flavor, but they're just not as high. So I'll get like 50 grams. I might get another 3 grams of fiber out of it. And then I'll have chia seed, flaxseed, and goji berries. Chia seed, flaxseed, high in fiber. Goji berries, again, not as high in fiber, but tastes nice in the meal. So that breakfast contains like 17 grams of fiber. Now, if you're not used to eating fiber, where you were saying you felt real full when you've had like the chia seeds and raspberry, if the gut bacteria aren't used to the fiber coming in, you immediately feel so full, because essentially, yes, exactly. Essentially, it swells in your stomach, gets to your gut, and you don't have the bacteria present to process it at the speed that you should. So it takes a long time for your body to process that fiber down. But then that fiber in itself being present in the gut expands the good bacteria in the gut, which then means the next time you eat more fiber, it can process it more quickly. So when you start eating fiber, it feels a real challenge, because increasing your protein intake makes you feel so full. But you get to a point where then your gut adapts, the bacteria are present, you can hit that fiber intake and it doesn't wipe you out for the next couple of hours.
And it's like, glance yourself in the mirror or a picture or something,
Yeah.
Because obviously, I'm aware that you get mentally, I'm aware of what's going on, but still visually, it's like, it's always a bit
Mhm.
shit.
No, it's yes. Yeah. That is one thing. When you eat more fiber in the short term, the scale weight will go up. It doesn't mean you're not losing body fat. It means your body's storing more food in your digestive system. That's a good thing, because if it's taking longer to move through your gut, it's getting more of the nutrients extracted from it. If you haven't got enough fiber and it's passing right through, you're not pulling many of the micronutrients and protein, fiber, fats from it. Slowing it down is a good thing. Slowing it down increases scale weight, but that doesn't mean you're not losing body fat. So these are all the things when people start the process, they start weightlifting. So even if you don't get that much of an increase in muscle mass, you do get an immediate increase in water storage in the muscle. You eat more fiber, maybe you take creatine, maybe you're also drinking more fluid. Them 4 things can increase body weight dramatically, but it won't change the fact that you're still losing body fat, but the scale itself won't show it. The in-body will, but the scale won't. So if you're just using your scale weight in the morning, that can throw you off track, because that's a good signal that weight's going up, because you're storing more water, processing more food. Them things are good. So don't use it as, well, this process isn't working, I'm not losing fat.
Viral.
Yeah.
I'd worked so hard for about 2 weeks and just able to.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I changed my goal yesterday, so I had a goal a week ago that was to lose weight, and then yesterday I changed it, and I really looked at my body and I looked at the body fat, and I'm like, right, I'm going to lose that body fat part.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole mind change.
It is.
isn't it? Because, I mean, certain women of my age,
And I've gone through
the
this.
scale is everything.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the thin, you've got the X number of pounds,
Mhm.
etc.
Mhm.
And it becomes a bit, when the scale says the weight's gone up.
Yeah.
$10,
Yeah.
Or fiber,
Mhm.
you feel fuller for longer. So when your body gets used to it, you get more hungry.
No.
That doesn't matter.
No. It processes through your gut more quickly, but then there's a few other things that happen. So one of those things is that I mentioned it again a few weeks ago, but 90% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. That's like, serotonin's a happy hormone. If you don't have the good bacteria, then a lot of your serotonin can't be produced, because your body doesn't have the ability to do it. So serotonin also helps you feel full, helps you feel satiated. So it doesn't make you feel more hungry, because the hormones and chemicals in your body change more positively. So, and the other thing is that another one of the things that can make you feel hungry is a decrease in blood sugar. And fiber stabilizes blood sugar. So your blood sugar stays consistent through the day, meaning that a lot of the signals that may give you that hunger feeling are blunted by the fact that you're eating more fiber.
Like, well, because I think to lose it.
You want to be, for the rest of your life, you want to be in a good condition. You're not trying to be in good condition next week. Try and bear that mind framing. Scale weight isn't something I put in here. It's maybe something, again, could talk through next week, but yeah. I think everyone here has had an illness where they've dropped like 10 pounds over like a week, right? You all done that? It all sounds right. So if you think that like 10 pounds that you've dropped because you're ill, that's water leaving your body, that's food storage. So therefore, the opposite is also true. You drink more water, you eat more fiber, you can go up 10 without gaining body fat. Go on, Nina. Fiber's one where you could eat, so if your target's 30 grams in the day, you could eat 30 grams in one meal, doesn't matter. Fiber, for your own benefit of breaking that up and feeling full through the day, probably better breaking that up. But if you look at like physiologically how fiber works in your body, if you just ate 30 grams in one meal, it'd get the same benefit. So try and avoid it 4 hours before bed. Yeah, which is the same thing we spoke about in terms of sleep. But if you had 30 grams 4 hours before bed, that's fine. Yeah, actually, I always keep frozen raspberries, chia, and flax seeds in the cupboard. All of those can be utilized pretty quickly for some kind of meal if I'm short on fiber for whatever reason. So you've got raspberries, blackberries, apple, skimmed pears, broccoli, cabbage, courgette. If you put in them meals, they're real high in fiber. Leafy greens, put stackers there. They're a little bit different, because what I mean by that is, in order to get a good fiber content from spinach, you'd have to literally eat a field of spinach. But when you put it in a meal, it wilts down into nothing, but does provide a pretty good fiber boost. So leafy greens like rocket, like spinach, it's not like you're not going to get incredible amount, but it's well worth using those to help you hit your fiber intake. That makes sense. There's other things like iron and so on that you get from leafy greens. So if you looked at a pack of leafy greens, you'd probably go, well, I'll have to eat like everything that's in Tesco here to get what I need. Doesn't mean it's not worthwhile using them. Do you know? Yeah, do you know I seen in Asda the other day, they do a bag, I don't know if anyone's ever used it, I've never actually used it. It's like a bag of spinach that's like a hockey puck of spinach. Yeah, so my thought was if you throw that into like, if you're making like a chili or, yeah, like a frozen, it's like a hockey puck of spinach, it's frozen. Yeah, like throw them into a soup or, yeah. Claggy, love that word.
So if it's whole leaf and it's frozen, so what you can get the chops, not
Yeah.
you can get it, and then that disappears, yeah, it's just kind of bits.
Then, so again, like I say, in your cupboard, chia seed, flaxseed, lentils, beans, they are so high in fiber. If you look at a tin of baked beans, you know the 400-gram tin, like the bigger one, 20 grams of fiber in that. So beans are huge to get your fiber intake. I think baked beans are like 16 grams of fiber, but they do have 5-bean baked beans. They're 20 grams of fiber. Beans are also high in protein as well. So tin of beans, good for you. Chucking that into like chilies and stuff again, good idea. And then oats as well. So porridge, granary-based breads, wraps that are granary seeded, like that sort of thing, bagels that are seeded. Some of those, like per wrap, you can get like 8 grams of fiber on some of them. Usually fine with wraps though, the higher the fiber intake, the harder it is to eat. It's like eating cardboard. But with bread, if you just get like wholemeal granary bread, it'll be like 5-6 grams of fiber per slice. So if you add baked beans on 2 slices of granary bread, you've got your whole day's fiber intake in one meal. How have you been getting on with fiber? Yeah. Oh, decent. Yeah, decent. Cool. Yeah, it is the key. I worked out the other day, I'm eating like 3.5 kilos of raspberries a month. Do you know, right, 300 grams of raspberries, like £1. It cost me in raspberries. You get them fresh, then yeah, get a new mortgage. Yeah, someone was saying this the other day, the high in fiber and protein. They're supposed to be tasty as well. Middle class Lou will be straight there. What was it that you had? You were the most kimchi purchased in Tameside last year. Everyone happy with that then? Got the idea around the fiber bombs. These are what are going to help you hit your fiber intake. Like I say, I try and in that first meal, raspberries, chia seeds, all the other bits. I'm getting like 60% of my fiber intake in meal one. But keep some of these in the cupboard. Have a meal where it's got beans in it. Have a meal that's oat based. Have a meal that's got fruit in it. Like this is how you're going to hit that fiber intake. When you go back to the removing chaos stuff, plan on a Sunday 2, 3, 4, 5 meals that you can use that are specifically designed to hit that fiber intake. Rotate them into your week, help you get there. So before we add anything else to fiber, the golden rule is you need reliability. So the next thing that I'm going to say, I want to caveat it with, the most important thing is hit your 30 grams, even if you ate 30 grams of fiber with the exact same food sources every single day. But your gut will benefit from getting different colors of food and different types of fiber. Now, I want to caveat it with saying, don't let the need to hit different types of fiber get in the way of you hitting 30 grams. Hit the 30 grams first. But different colors of food, so like peppers have different colors in them, like your gut reacts differently to that. Essentially, if your plate is always beige, then your gut isn't happy. So trying to have a different colors on your plate will benefit the healthy bacteria in your gut. Don't let that get in the way of you hitting 30 grams. I try to get 50% in meal one. I think that's a good rule for everyone. Before you start removing food from your diet for fat loss, try to work on adding fiber into it. Yeah. So if you find that your calorie deficit is 1,500 and your maintenance is 2,000 and you're struggling to do fiber and protein at 1,500, increase that calorie intake and get used to eating the fiber and then reduce the calories back down when you've got in the flow of how you do it and how you feel. Yeah. Again, you're trying to be lean, healthy for the rest of your life, not next week. So if it means that we learn the skill of how do we consume fiber in a calorie deficit in the next 2 weeks, and then we utilize that skill for the rest of our lives, rather than fighting it for the next 2 weeks because we want to see the scales go down next week, you'd be better learning the skill of how do we get fiber in a calorie deficit. The next thing then is increase it gradually, 5 to 10 grams every 3 to 4 days. That's where if you just slam in 30 grams and you've been getting 5 grams, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't do this every day. Just bump it up 5 to 10 grams per day over the next like 3 to 4 days until you're at the point you want. It takes your gut 4 weeks to adapt from if you're at 5 to 10 grams today and you move to 30 grams, once you're at 30 grams, it's going to take like another 4 weeks for your gut to get used to that, for the healthy bacteria to expand and all the processes to happen, which then restabilizes your fiber. You will feel the benefit before 4 weeks, but it's at 4 weeks where it'll take you to get there.
Average out like calories and protein. So if it's like one day, it's like 45, another day.
No, it doesn't. It's not a bad thing if you get 45, but that's not like you can have 15 tomorrow. Yeah. There is though, like if you was consistently getting 45 grams the other day, you hit 5, your gut's not going to like start collapsing because of that. You do want to try and keep it consistent. It's also, as much as I've told everyone 30 grams, it's like 25 to 35. So if you was getting 25 in a day, that's also cool. Yeah.
So if we take a lot more, because I track, but I stopped tracking after 30. I don't track how much. I
Yeah.
actually take.
I'll have some days where I'll hit like 60 grams and not an issue. I think if you look at the research, you will, if you do that consistently long term, you could create like gut problems. That's not really my like area to tell you like what that would be. I would try to stick with towards 30. It's also true that if you have a day at 60, like it's all good. But I'd try and keep as close as you can to consistently getting around 30. It's a good problem to have if you're always eating too much fiber. Yeah. You'll get the benefit though within about 2 weeks of serotonin production coming back online, blood sugar staying stable. That then has a big impact on mood, energy, drive. And you'll notice that combined with sleep, the 2 p.m. crash disappears. There will be some bloating and irregularity in the process. So some funky shit will go on in the gut of like a few days of not going. Quite literally, there'll be some funky shit going on. It'll take a few weeks to go through that process while your gut's adapting. You'll also feel a lot like bubbling and stuff. That's new bacteria fermenting that hasn't been there previously. Any questions on fiber? All good. Well, that concludes this week. Next week is going to be exit strategy. So essentially, what do we do from the rest of this without meeting every Saturday? It wasn't the diet that didn't work. It was the exit strategy that didn't work. That's what we're going to work out next week. Cool. Awesome. Right.
Can we add about protein?
Yes, do you want me to speak free protein as well? Yeah, can put that in. Let me make a note. Before you start removing food, fat loss, work on adding fiber in. So if you work on adding fiber in and then go back to also maintain your fiber and get my protein in, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, because right now I'm actually trying to focus more sleep fiber.
Yeah.
Not even think about calories.
Yeah, again,
It's also need the protein.
Yeah. So again, like we've always spoke about habit stacking. Like get comfortable that one habit's in place and then we put another in place and so on. You're doing that, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Because it'll make more sense the second time, the third time. And that's part of the exit strategy as well, that, it might take another 4 weeks or, 10 weeks to get to the point where you're ticking all the boxes.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Oh yeah, because it's a lot.